Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fanfic Mania with Dragon Princess 18, where we will be rewatching One Piece and having plenty of fun talking all about fandom. Alright, and here we are back with episode 3 of Fanfic Mania, where we're doing the Buggy arc. Most of the arcs in East Blue are single chapter arcs, except for Romance Dawn, and I believe even the like Arlong arc and stuff like that. Actually, no. I think the Romance Dawn's the only exception. And this was mostly because those arcs were like 1 or 2 episodes. Like I think the Buggy arc is 2 or 3, and that's a surprise, really. I didn't realize how much backstory they put into that arc. And it was something that could just be condensed into a single chapter. So why do 2 or 3? Didn't make sense to me. So the Buggy arc is one of those that I used to do a little more backstory, not just for Kari herself, but for her abilities as a key holder, for the rules for being one, and all that sort of stuff. Like a little more, like that extra world building that had to be done, because obviously, celestial spirits and all that stuff is from Fairy Tail, not from One Piece. I had to kind of adjust things. So instead of having that whole flashback scene from the anime where, we learn about where Luffy came from, how he met Shanks, how Shanks lost his arm, how Luffy got his hat, all that stuff. I purposely didn't put it in here because we know it. If you're here reading this story, you know at least that much. It is like the first 5 episodes of the anime. It is like the first book, the first volume of the manga. I'm of the opinion, especially if you're writing fan fiction, that if something doesn't change, like the scene basically is gonna go the same as it does in canon, don't write it word for word. I don't think anybody's really here for a step-by-step breakdown of stuff that we already know, especially if like it's not being changed in any way, or a character doesn't have to be there to learn this information in order for things to move forward. And that happens a lot, especially in this chapter, because there was basically, it starts off with the scene and then they end up getting split up, and I was like, well, Zoro's still gonna get to this place the same way as canon. Luffy's still gonna meet Nami the same way as canon. Why am I gonna rewrite this stuff when I could get to other things? So, basically the entire first chunk of the chapter really is Kari explaining how celestial spirits work in this world, and also kind of showing more of her character and revealing her dream, which is something that was avoided in the first 2 chapters because that was setting up more Luffy and Zoro. And like Luffy makes a point. Luffy makes the point that his dream is for him and Zoro's dream is for him, but Kari's dream is very specifically for other people. She basically explains that her goal, because she said earlier in the first chapter, like, why are you out here, why are you sailing? And she says, to be free. And this chapter kind of realizes that for her, it's not just her own freedom, it's the freedom of other people, because her dream is to collect all 12 of the Zodiac keys in order to then summon the Celestial Spirit King, because that will give her like a favor, a wish basically, to change things, to change rule, to free her celestial spirits and all celestial spirits from the basically being used as meat shields and being abused and being the short end of the stick when it comes to this whole trade. And you can kind of see it, like, in the couple times that spirits have been shown already, because it's only been Carla and Panther Lily so far before this, and you can see that she really does treat them like old friends. Like, she, in that sense, she's really like Lucy, where she doesn't see them as tools or anything like that. She sees them as her very, very, very dear friends, and she's, I won't say she's frustrated, I think that she's upset, like, so, like, it pisses her off, thinking that there are people who have her ability, who, if they ever got their hands on her keys, would basically, without any regard for the spirits, just throw them into a fight and, like, run, or use them as meat shields or as a distraction so that they can, get in the fight, whether it's going to hurt them or not. And it's kind of the first hint, I think, especially for Luffy, that she, because it's a big thing later where Luffy says it explicitly. He's like, I don't want to be a hero. Like, I'm not a hero. I'm a pirate. I don't want to be a hero because a hero has to share. Like, it's a very black and white view of it, I guess. He's like, I'm a pirate, so I just get to keep all the meat. But he's very insistent on being like, I'm not a hero. In his head, Kari is a hero. Because in his head, he's like, no, but she's, like, nice and she's always sharing things. Like, even her dream is technically a shared dream between her and all of her celestial spirits, especially as she gains them. So it's one of those things that really, like, sets the tone for her character. In this chapter especially, you see a lot more of her using the abilities of her spirits, but also, like, switching in and out of them more for their safety than for her safety. Like when Luffy gets grabbed by the bird, because only Luffy would try to eat a giant bird in the sky in the middle of the ocean and get caught. But she summons Happy in order to fly up, like, to try to catch up to the bird to get Luffy. And when she realizes that, there's a town, there's an island, and Luffy gets shot down, to protect Happy, she actually closes his gate so that she can, land on the rooftops and hopefully, like, go under the radar without risking him being shot with her. Just like she summons Carla to use her, I see more as future sight than actual glimpses into the future. Like, I kind of think of it more how like Garnet from Steven Universe does it. That Carla can kind of see all the possibilities and kind of figure out which ones are the most likely. So she uses Carla to kind of, like, narrow down, like, okay, where did Luffy go? Is he okay? What's going on? She starts following his path. And it's Carla's ability that saves both of them from being accidentally murdered by the Buggy Ball. The demonstration that Buggy gives Nami on how the Buggy Balls work. And when Carla, kind of takes her to find them, this is basically when Luffy's in the cage. Zoro's already stopped Buggy from killing him the first time. And gotten stabbed because Buggy's a cheater who cheats. And Nami's kind of stuck, like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. When she decides, like, oh no, I'm gonna kick Buggy's ass, she doesn't let Carla kind of take that, dive with her so much. But she's very considerate of that. She's like, Carla is not a combat spirit primarily, so I probably shouldn't just, like, cannonball into this guy with her. Might hurt. It's what, like, you kind of see a lot more of the, like, you see peaks of the dragon kind of coming through, you know? It's about the color of her eyes going bright. All of a sudden, the way that, like, Zoro kind of feels it like a pressure. Like, when she was mad earlier on the boat, he's like, there was something for him. It's like, it felt like she was more a beast or a force of nature, and she felt bigger when she was, like, upset, when, like, it was, you know, basically her dragon was kind of exuding itself. And when she's calm, it kind of goes away. And something similar here, where she's not holding back shit. She is very efficiently, like, getting Zoro up, having Panther Lily cut Luffy loose, and like, you know, turning the cannon around, and she's just like, fuck this, like, you all are fucked. Like, I don't, like, I hate all of you right now, this sucks. And just not giving a damn about any of it. Like, even Nami's kind of sitting there like, who are you? Like, you weren't here a second ago, where have you been? And she just kind of brushes it off. It's like, you know, it's nothing, I'm the babysitter, right? Runs off, and you're seeing a little more of how she is, like, as she kind of gets used to them. Just like, you know, they find a calm place. Panther Lily starts freeing Luffy, and she's trying to take care of Zoro's stab wound, right? And I don't know, for me, I kind of see, because I know her past, obviously, and I know I've decided on, like, certain trauma responses and things like that, because obviously she had a pretty traumatic background here, and it's like, this is the first big hint that she did, because she, you know, takes off her top to make bandages, and while it's initially kind of like a funny moment of like, why did you do that? And she's like, because you're bleeding out. Like, why do I care? Like, what do I care about, like, not wearing a top when you will die if I don't stop this bleeding? Like, focus. We have priorities. And it kind of takes a little slightly more darker turn, because doing that reveals this, like, giant, like, boot-shaped bruise on her back that you can tell from the modeled coloring of it that it's older, and it's healing, and she won't admit exactly where it came from, and Panther Lily does not want to be asked about where it came from. They're both trying to avoid it, and like you see Luffy and Zoro kind of key into that, but they don't ask, because that's Luffy's thing. He doesn't ask about people's pasts. The past just kind of comes back, and then he deals with it then. But it's the first hint that you kind of get that she's had a physically abusive childhood at the very least, and things just kind of add up. It's like little breadcrumbs. Like, you, with something like this, when you have like the big reveal is the background, is the history of the character, you don't just throw that out there. You don't just, like, everything's hunky-dory, yada da, and then it just kind of sideswipes you out of freaking nowhere. And everybody's sitting there like, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. Like, what the hell is this? Like, for example, Nami. Nami's, like, officially introduced in this arc. We've been seeing a little more of her because obviously the anime kind of teased her earlier than she is in the manga. But the whole point is that you meet her. She's a very anti-pirate. She's a thief that steals only from pirates. She is manipulative. She's a liar. And she's an opportunist that is obsessed with money. But there was that moment when Buggy tried to get her to shoot Luffy and kill him with the buggy ball, that she was like, I can't do it. Like, there was that moment of like, I cannot kill him like that. I can't, like, light the match and light the fuse and let it go. and it was a revelation, I think, for both of them. But I think for Luffy, it was more confirmation of that. For all that Nami is traumatized by what happened to her mother, what happened to her village, and what happened to her island, and what's happened to her in the last, like, what, 8 years? And she's still a good person, and that she genuinely doesn't really want to hurt people, but she often feels that she has to in order to save them, you know? And you see that a lot more in the art. My point being, really, that you realize that there was something more about Nami from her past as you watched, and it wasn't really like a surprise that something was like lurking in the background for her, that she was reacting to old trauma, to new trauma, to a current threat, so that when it kind of came up, you know, it was sudden in, like, oh, well, this doesn't seem like a planned thing, and just kind of like was an opportunity, a bad timing opportunity, but an opportunity. And that, you know, you could kind of tell, like, oh, well, like, as it unfolded, it was explaining more about why she is the way she is, and you're like, okay, now this is making sense. Like, all of the little clues that I have build up perfectly to this moment and inform her character in a way that makes sense without kind of like, you know, pulling shit out of your ass, like, oh no, I know that I said this, but she's actually like this and stuff like that. Like, everything's consistent. You kind of have to be the same way with your own characters, you know. Any quirks, any like personality traits, little things that you kind of make a point of like using to make your character unique. You kind of need to think about why somebody would be like that. Why somebody would have that as like their, you know, as a response to something from their past or whatever. Oda is great at it. Like, it's great. Like, even the funniest, weirdest background character, or the weirdest character in general, like, you look at them and it's like, he's just like a silly, you know, I think the biggest one is the silly guy wearing dressed up like as a baby. And then you freaking go into the backstory and you're like, oh, now I know why, and I am crying. Like, why? How do you do that? It doesn't make any sense. But it's something that you, like, you know, it's one of those things that you can take away from having read One Piece. Like, that is a good thing to do when it comes to character growth and backstory and development. I mean, he's pretty good at it. I know sometimes characters seem to devolve for the gags, but I think that's just the limitations of shonen as a genre sometimes, that there has to be like a little bit of humor. It can't just all be, you know, badass and serious. One Piece is in itself a funny anime, funny manga. There has to be a little bit of humor. But anyway, getting back, that was the first stepping stone, one of the first little clues that I left for Kark's past. Mind you, this is something that's not going to pay off for like 50 more chapters. It's going to be a bit. But the important bit is building up to the payoff. You don't want to just like throw that in there. It's not great. So, you know, things go on. Kari and Zoro end up not so much being part of the reveal of Chow Chow's backstory, of the mayor talking about the town or whatever. But this chapter does seem to be more about, now that I look back, about showing all of her spirits, except for Aquarius, but showing mostly her silver keys. Like, you see Carla's Panther Lily happy, And then this, another misfire of the Buggy Roll is an introduction for Horologium, who I had to include him as a silver key of hers, precisely because he's useful in that way, and he becomes pretty big staple for other things that also show more of her character. Because you have to think that her first reaction to realizing what was happening was basically to tackle Zoro into Horologium. And if there hadn't been room for her, she wouldn't have gone in. And it's something you see a little bit more here, where she is willing to pull somebody else out of danger and put herself in it. Like, that's a good trade-off for her. Just like, they go through the whole thing. She's like, okay, the mayor's running off. Why is he running off? Oh, either way, I'm not gonna die. Let's go. And then we get to finally the fights. I find it, I thought it would be funny that, basically Buggy's, crew, more or less, like Kawaji has like hate for Zoro because Zoro beats him so well. Buggy obviously has this rivalry, so to speak, with Luffy. I kind of wanted Kari to have something similar, and so I literally created a character that would fit into the motif of the Buggy Pirates, and would also be a key holder. And I was like, you know what? This is a good opportunity to introduce Leo the Lion. Just because he kind of fit into the whole thing where they already had a beast master that had an actual lion. Let her kind of follow the motif by also having the lion spirit. And it's a good physical demonstration of why a spirit and a keyholder need to have a strong bond. And because that's something that you see more later, but basically, like, Kari, especially with Aquarius, has such a strong bond between them. It's not just oh, I have your key. They have a strong foundation of friendship and love and trust between each other, to the point where Aquarius, she can hear Aquarius through her key, like her thoughts almost, when Aquarius isn't even there. Like, Aquarius is still in the celestial spirit world. She has, it's the strongest bond that she has, but she has a similar thing with all of her spirits, and so all of them are fairly strong when in the human world. But then here comes Leo with Nisa, and you kind of see what happens when you don't have a good bond with your spirit, because, like is described in the chapter, Leo is the leader of the Zodiac. He is the strongest of the 12, supposed to be strongest of the 12, and is the only one who can kind of stand on somewhat equal footing with the Celestial Spirit King. Like, not beat him or anything, but like, he's the closest to that level. And here he is in the East Blue, and instead of being the game changer, the one that turns the tide and like really like wins battles, he's like beat up, he's tired, he's haggard, he's like nowhere near strong enough to be dealing with this shit. Like, Kari's just flipping him and dodging his attacks with no issue, and she beats up. It's funny for me because I think about like this, Nisa is so confident, and then Kari just like beats her without even like actually throwing a punch. Basically just pulls her into her arm and flips her into unconsciousness and just takes her keys. And it's not because she's greedy, it's because she's like, you obviously don't know how to treat your spirits, I'm just gonna take them and give them the care that they deserve. And I just thought that kind of, like, the rivalry starting because Kari just didn't even think of her as a threat. And then Nisa gets a little pissed off. A little, not a lot. She gets a lot pissed off. But there's that moment where Leo's about to fall over. Luffy stretches out his hand to kind of help him up, and Kabaji purposely takes that moment and tries to cut Luffy's arm off. And her first instinct is to recall Leo to kind of have Luffy's arm snap back. But when that doesn't prove fast enough, she just grabs his wrist and swings him around, and she puts herself in the way of the sword. Because in her mind, she's like, well, like, Luffy needs that hand. This is bullshit. Like, I'm not just gonna let him get hurt without any thought for herself. And it's another one of those selfless things that Luffy kind of realizes when he hears about her dream, and it's just reinforced. But kind of segues into Zoro's fight with Kabaji, where she, like, it's to defend her, basically. And it comes to the thing that happens between them a little more, where they start defending each other in these kinds of situations. The big here being, like, Kari realizing, even if it upsets her, like, these two are too stubborn and they're too idiotic to not fight when they're heavily injured. But the least I can do is warn them to be careful. Because she mentions to Zoro, like, don't fuck up these stitches. Like, she complains about it, like, can't do them as nice the next time, there's a lot of extra work, don't just, ruin it. But you can tell that she's saying it, like, don't hurt yourself any more than you already have. Like, this is pretty fucking shitty already. But when, obviously, we know Zoro wins. And then you can kind of see him acknowledge that she's strong. Like, in that moment when he kind of just, like, collapses on her and then goes to sleep on her lap. Like, you know what? I had a day. I'm just gonna take a nap. You keep watching. She's like, fucking Zoro, no, we're in the middle of some shit here. Like, why are you doing this? They have the whole fight with Luffy and Buggy that you mostly don't see, because it more or less goes the way it does in canon. The difference being that Kari is the one that's carrying Zoro once the fight's over and they're gonna leave, and Kari actually ends up carrying all three of them. And it's more or less another hint of that she's not human, but she also makes a point of saying that she's not a devil fruit user either, which I can imagine is very confusing for Nami, because Nami's just having a day. She's having such a day. It's hilarious to me. They get back to their boats, and I still love the scene where those three idiots from Buggy's crew kind of pop out, like they think that they're gonna, like, they've gotten Nami, and they come up and they I think one of them, like, pats Zoro's head and, like, think he's gonna hurt him, and it's Kari that kind of blows up. Like, what the hell do you think you're doing with my patient, you bitch? And just bunts all of them into the water. And Nami just looks at her like, are you sure you didn't eat enough of her? Because, that's some shit. Like, I don't think normal people can do that. That's weird. And Kari is just like, no, I didn't. I know, like, trust me. I would know if I had. Like, everybody gets in the boat. And it's one of those, like, it's a very quick, like, half a sentence, but it's revealed that Chow Chow gave Luffy a silver key that he then gives to Kari. And it's kind of like, I imagine, because for her, it's not that she's just collecting gold keys. I mean, the gold keys are the ones furthering her goals, but she's also collecting silver keys at the same time. Like, more to keep them safe than to, just have them to have them. And Luffy, like, hands it over. He's just like, I know it's not a gold one, but, it's silky. And, when I imagine these moments, because they happen a few times, I think for Kari, it's kind of like, Christmas, her birthday, Hanukkah, all the great holidays, all of those moments, the happiest moments in your life. Just imagine them condensed into a single moment, and that's like the joy that she feels, because it's like almost a relief. She's like, oh, here's another one that I can help. And so I always find it funny that in that moment, she gets so overcome with joy that she just kisses him. And Luffy's just kind of like, huh, that was new. And Zoro's kind of standing there like, you just do that now? And she didn't even realize that she'd done it. It just evolves into a whole moment. But it's one of those funny things that I know that, like, with Luffy, Zoro, later on, Law and Kid, that if they ever give her a key, that's gonna be her reaction. But I can't wait until the moment that I can fit in a scene where, like, Sanji gives her a key, and he's just waiting for that moment. He's just waiting for that kiss to just die happy. And then he gets a hug. I mean, he still has a nosebleed and passes out, but, like, that would be a very disappointed nosebleed of, like, but she didn't, but that's not, but why? No, I like those scenes, like, just because they're embarrassing for her, and she just immediately snaps back into like extra high snark mode to kind of like deflect from it. It's great. But this chapter, I feel, is a little more about, you're not even so much introducing Nami as like moments between Kari and her spirits, and character and back a little bit background crumbs for Kari. But there is something that I made sure to point out, is that Kari, you can kind of tell that Kari has a sense for character. That she trusts Luffy fairly quickly, and after a bit, she also ends up trusting Zoro pretty well. With Nami, you see that she's a little more closed off in this chapter, that she's a little bit more like, our navigator, huh? Even though she does end up trusting Nami, you can tell that Kari is seeing the things that Luffy's ignoring. Because that's the thing. Luffy's all about, like, who you are now. He doesn't care about your past. He doesn't care about why you do things. He's just like, well, you're my friend. And that's all I need to know. Kari, on the other hand, looked at Nami and was like, I know that you're a good person, but I can also see that there's trauma there that could turn around and bite us in the ass. Like, your response to pressure might put us in danger at some point, She loosens up as she is kind of like, oh, maybe it's not, well, not that it's that bad, but that she's like, I think that Nami's starting to get away from it. And then obviously the Arlong comes in, where the trauma just kind of snaps back into place. But it's more like recognizing like. And you can kind of also see something somewhat similar with Usopp. Not so much like seeing like, but that she's like more understanding of why he is the way he is, given his backstory. And that she is also aware of where he needs to be encouraged and kind of like, shored up, But that's pretty sure that's next chapter. For now, Buggy arc is over. We have 4 members of the crew, even though Nami doesn't admit it. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.